Welcome to the Modern Homes Podcast. I'm Rob Clemens.
I'm Frank Dominic.
And we are the same guys we were last week, but we got more information for you. So let's dive right in. Hey, Frank, we started this show with an idea of we get questions all the time. And, it's a shame to just share it with one person at a time because everybody has these questions. It's like when you were in school and I remember the teacher would say, hey, look, just ask the question because if you're asking it, there's probably 20 other people who don't know. At least. Right? So that's what we intended to do. And so sometimes it's just topical. We have some things called top 10 issues to watch in real estate. So we're going to cover that in a little bit. But we were talking a little bit before the show and I feel like this is something we need to talk about a little bit. Let's set the stage for... You're going in to buy a house in a builder community.
Yes.
Okay.
It happened because this question came directly to me.
This directly came up. And sometimes we'll do this at the end of the show, but I feel like this was such a good topic. We need to do it at the beginning of the show because I don't know how long we need to talk about this. It can be a while. Yeah. But so setting the stage for somebody said to you, tell the story. Let's.
I had a buyer say to me that a friend of theirs had bought a brand new home in a builder community and said you didn't need to have a realtor because they have one on site to help you out. And the answer to that is yes, there is a realtor on site there to help you out. The flip side to that is they're paid by the builder. They're paid by the builder. So their loyalties to the builder, everything they're going to do is going to be swayed towards helping the builder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a rep like me, a realtor, an independent realtor from a separate brokerage will be there working solely for you. The builder is not going to weigh into my thoughts at all. I
got an analogy for you, and I want to get back to this, but it's kind of like saying, you go to court and there's an attorney on the other side, and you don't have an attorney. Oh, no, it's okay. There's an attorney present. like they're representing the other guy. That doesn't work out.
In some ways, it's very similar.
It is extremely similar. Well, to your point, and we hear this all the time, and look, it is a part of something that happens anyway. People say, what do I need a buyer's agent for? What do I need a realtor for? I can look online at realtor.com and pull up the 10 homes I want to see and call all these realtors. And the thing they're always missing is those realtors each represent the seller of the home. And their job is to make sure that seller is handled, not you, Mr. Buyer. So why would you give up all of the rights that you have, all the things that you have? And all realtors, we have to act ethically. Yeah. We can't lie. We have all these things.
And our contracted obligation is with our client.
But that's who our obligation is to. So it's like they can't falsify documents, but they're sure not going to tell you that, hey, look, we've got a special financing that we can do for you. They don't have the reasoning that they have to do it unless their seller has told them to do so.
Yeah, the first time, I bought from a builder without a realtor.
Yeah.
And was kind of numb to it. I felt like I got a decent price. I felt like I negotiated well.
Right.
It was a smooth process. I liked the house. There was no issues. But the first time I went in as a buyer's agent to a community, I realized, oh my gosh.
Wow.
I left stuff on the table.
Yeah, that's...
One is somebody like me is going to be in that community before you ever have. So I know they're selling homes fast or they're not. So right away, we got some money to play with on pricing. Okay. Yep. I've also already had a conversation with the builder on site's realtor about what things are you offering buyers and what kind of incentives do you have across the board? What's going on now? People have year ends. Some builders, their year end is in July. Some their year end is in November.
Right.
So the biggest discount in pricing is 2 different months for 2 different builders.
Yeah. Well, it goes like this.
And nobody advertises that, though.
Well, they're not going to advertise it, right? They have no reason to unless, and here's the ironic part. It's like I just said a minute ago. If you are hearing about the special as the buyer coming through the door, that is because the seller said, I want them to know about the special. There's all kinds of things that you might be able to get that you don't know about. And that's where your buyer's agent. I'd take it like this. Look, there is a certain person that's out there that would just love to have somebody representing them. You're not great at negotiating. See, Frank, I know you on the side. You're good at negotiating. You're good at talking with people. Yeah. Some people aren't good at that, and you need a realtor anyway. But even if you are good at all that stuff, and here's the part I like about your story, it is still to your advantage to have somebody who says, oh, no, you did not know this, but here's the environment out here right now, and you can get this deal. So I think it's a great thing for us to talk about. And it goes all the way down to, the builders may, if you don't have representation, they may say, well, yeah, we're going to send over this person. You want to talk to somebody, and they're picking all the people.
Yeah.
So why not bring in your own third-party inspector? Well, I don't have an inspector, but guess who does, Frank?
I have one.
Rob, we have people that we can hook you up with. So
I have a good painter. We have flooring people.
I mean, well, one thing that's great about Carolina Bays is we have so many resources because we are on the home building side and the remodeling side and real estate. We've got people for just about everything you can imagine. And whether, we're always careful with, hey, make sure you check out your people, vet them. You have to like them yourself. But at the end of the day, we're here for you and you're paying no more. Actually, the goal is for you to save money. But even if you weren't saving money, it would still be nice to have that.
And the ironic thing when I explained this to this person was the builder is going to pay my commission.
You're right. Yeah.
So having me there is not costing you anything.
No, exactly.
Because that's another perception. People were like, oh my gosh, I got to pay all this money to a realtor. Well, not every occasion, but the majority of the occasions, the seller is covering that.
Well, fair enough. And there's another part of this. And I think this is important to talk about. And look, at the end of the day, I say things from things I've heard from years in this industry.
Sure.
But one of the examples is person goes in because they thought they were saving some time, and you think you're saving money even though you will not save money by not using a buyer's agent. That is just not really a thing. But then you go in and you start reaching out to these agents directly. You have actually done the opposite of this, of what you're trying to do, because now that you've reached out, your potential buyer's agent who could have helped you is not the procuring calls anymore. No. And so now you've gone directly to them. And so sometimes you cause yourself a different kind of a problem. I had and ethically, I kind of didn't like this one, so I'm not even going to tell who the builder was, but it was another a national builder. And I had a friend who said, hey, Rob, I'd love to get your help on this real estate transaction. I'd like to use you as a broker. And you who know me and listen to the show, I'm a broker as well, even though I build homes. And she wanted to use me. She said, I could use your knowledge base. I need to, I just like somebody to review the contract. I just need somebody
She trusted you.
So I go in and I start trying to get her through the process, and the builder goes through the file, and they said, no, we've already met her before. She can't have a buyer's agent on this one. And I said, wait a minute, no, but she wasn't going to go to your property. And they said, no, it doesn't matter. We keep track of everybody, so she can't have a buyer's agent. She's working with us. We're the procuring calls. Yeah. So at which point, I would have been foolhardy to have stayed involved with that transaction, because at that point, I mean, she could have still paid me on the side, but I'm not trying to just make money off of every single transaction. So there is something, a cautionary tale, get yourself a buyer's agent. It will help you immensely in the long run. So anyway, well, good stuff, man. I appreciate you sharing the story. And we always want to just kind of make sure we're steering our people right. So let's dive in. I don't want to get to the end of the show and be, micro machines. Let's get through. Let's talk a little bit about top 10 issues to watch for in real estate. Now, let's give us due credit. This came out of Realtor Magazine, and this was in one of the recent issues that we get as realtors. But anyway, this was top 10 things to watch out for. Thought this was really good. So talking about this year, we are in 2025 right now, political uncertainty. What are your thoughts on that, Frank?
For me, locally, I haven't had a big effect on that, other than things tied to politics like inflation, interest rates, those kind of things. That's been a little bit, but I think that's another topic on the list. Housing affordability, I think.
I think you always have to talk about political uncertainty only in the rights of whether, you and I both know, we've been around long enough to know that sometimes these policies, they're a product of many, many people making decisions, not just one man. And at the end of the day.
Or not one party.
Yeah, nor one party. That's the beautiful thing about America, right? But the thing about political uncertainty is within the mindset of the people. We tend to do this thing where we're like, well, I'm going to wait till the election's over before I buy. So some of those things definitely...
That was very common last year.
It was very common. All the way from home building to buying to everything. So very common. So that is a thing. And to your point, housing affordability is on the list, but let's get to that at number 6. So next up, high financing costs.
It's definitely a factor.
It's still happening. The most common thing we're seeing is, and one reason my remodeling side of the Carolina Bays real estate does well, Carolina Bays construction side, is that you're sitting on a 3% mortgage.
Yeah.
And you know if you sell that home, that's gone. Bye-bye.
Which historically is crazy low.
It's like you're sitting on a gold mine,
Yes.
right? Hey, I'm sitting on...
Almost, you'd say, free money.
It really is.
Almost free money.
And so then to know that your trade-off would be to go to another place paying 6%, whatever you're paying. So it is a concern. I feel like, though, that what I'm hearing is that people are starting to accept that it is the new norm. We're not going back to 4%, 5%,
But,
maybe.
I said this on an older show. I bought my first house in 92, and my interest rate was 8.5%. And I was kind of like, wow, that's a lot. And then I literally talked to a guy I worked with then who was 10 years older than me and said, I just refinanced at 8.5% from 14%.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's all relative.
It's all relative. So historically, our interest rates, the problem with the housing affordability, which is number 6 now, is historically we have interest rates that are actually not bad. They're not great.
They're solid.
They're solid, but we have very high prices in some part of the country.
Yeah.
So they shot up because lower the interest rate, higher the price.
Yeah.
I tell people that and they feel like it's a sales gimmick or something, like you might want to buy before the rates drop because the price is going to go up.
Hey, that's fair.
And here's something that is a well-known saying in real estate: you marry the house, you don't marry the rate. Because down the road, you can maybe have a 5% interest rate, you can reduce it down, but that price that you paid, that's kind of what it is.
So are we to say you can date the rate? You can maybe go out on
the rate.
Go steady with the rate, but you're going to marry.
You buy the house, you date the rate.
Okay, fair enough. I wanted to play that analogy through. I don't know.
Yeah, because when you buy the house, that's a set number.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're
not going to go back and say, hey, can we negotiate?
No, absolutely.
But your rate can fluctuate.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, hey, look, I will tell you this. We talking to Dr. Rob Salvino. He's an economist.
Coastal, yeah.
One of the things he talked about was something we don't think about very often, but you actually just kind of introduced it indirectly. He said that sometimes one of the strategies at a countrywide level is when you feel like prices are increasing too much, you do certain things with the rates to maybe infuse more buying. So you lower rates, more people buy. That can increase the house rate prices because now more people are buying and there's more competition. So now there's more demand. What happens when demand goes up? Now all of a sudden prices go up. And conversely, when they raise the interest rates, they suppress the demand, which helped lower the prices. So you are 100% correct. Don't get off the fence, people.
All we have to look at is during COVID.
Yeah.
When the rates crashed down to these 2.7, 3%, 3.5%. What happened to your pricing of homes? They shot up.
Yeah, they did. They shot
because all of a sudden everybody's working from home. They need that 4th bedroom. So it's now an office. The kids are driving them crazy. All those things that you heard. We don't have enough space. It was a perfectly fine house until you're stuck in it for hours on end.
Well, to your point, you marry the house, not the rate. Because you can divorce the rate. Get a couple of years down the line and say, hey, you know what, let's refinance this. But a great point you're saying, get off the fence. I mean, we're always on the fence, but I go back to, you ever read a book called The Intelligent Investor? It's written by Benjamin Graham, I believe it was.
Yeah.
He said that there's a value of everything. Everything has a value, an intrinsic value. And what we do as people is we tend to take a company that's worth this much, and everybody gets really high on it, and we pump the value way up to here. But guess what? It's really worth this.
It's really worth that. It was always worth that.
Yeah, and then sometimes something happens. It could be a bad earning report or whatever, and now the values go way down because everybody's selling. But guess what? It's still here. So be smart. Get off the fence. You see a value, go for it. Man, I love that. And by the way, we don't want to run out of time, so I'll kind of zoom by some of these, but loan maturity deadlines. Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot of people talking about that, so I'll move on. Geopolitics and regional wars. Concern maybe. I think mainly the main topic with that comes down to when we're worried that oil prices are going to spike. You think about things like the wars over in the Middle East.
Here, from living in other areas of the country, and you have too. Yeah. Historically, those things here, we're pretty good pricing wise.
We're fairly good.
Rates, gas rates.
As I was saying, no, the thing is, it has had an effect when it comes down to oil prices, or even if you want to talk about, we're talking about wars and stuff, but anytime a product that we're relying on from out of the area is inflating, that's going to have a problem. One of the biggest differences is, so this is concrete, little pro talk here. So the other day, I had a client asking me about doing some concrete in his backyard for a new construction. Okay. And I gave him a price on doing the concrete pad, just a little 10 by 10 pad with some footings. things, and he was shocked. He goes, what happened? And right now, we are in many places in this country, we're over $200 per cubic yard. When I got into this business, we were at something like, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was like around $70. So, and again, that's over a long period of time, but a lot of that escalation happened within the last 6 to 7 years. And we're talking about what has happened in the last 6 to 7 years. COVID had an effect on the country, on the world. So I think about a lot of geopolitics and things like that. So it does play a role for sure. Home insurance cost, this has got to be a concern of everybody's. You know, we're always hearing these stories about Florida, people pulling out. I don't know, is this coming up with your customers, though? Are they actually talking about this?
It's only coming up with my clients in any situation when the house is older.
Yeah. Well,
I know State Farm has a 2015 cutoff.
Yeah.
Anything older than 2015, State Farm will not cover it.
Well, and it doesn't quite perfectly flow into this, but you know what I usually think of is in the coastal regions, when we're talking about flooding being a condition, my heart goes out to these flood victims because it's not only that your house is flooded, but if you even bring it back to condition, now what happens is your home actually doesn't sometimes meet the new flood requirements. And so FEMA goes through and often they'll redesignate places. They have their lines. And so sometimes your home might not have been in a big zone. Now it is, and you're too low.
I actually had a rental property up north in PA that was over a 12-year period that I owned. It was in and out of a flood zone.
Oh, wow. It went out after it was
was in a flood zone,
that
and then it was out, and then it was in, then it was out.
Doing the hokey pokey with your flood zone. Hey, look, I will tell you.
And through that whole time, I never had an experience with water.
You never had a flood. No. Right. Well, see, here's the irony. But that does happen. When they're adjusting their lines, they're looking at all kinds of data. So I'm saying they're not a bad guy.
No.
They're just trying to protect the people.
It's off of historical data and environment.
Absolutely. So, you know, we do get a lot of people who are concerned about flood zones, but I would say if you're on flood zone X, that's pretty much regular anymore. So you hear flood zone X, that's nothing to really panic about.
I'm in flood zone X.
Yeah, exactly. Most people kind of are in that, but then you get into your AEs, and the higher that number can be kind of a thing to consider. Okay, housing affordability. This is a big one. I think we need to talk about this. For a minute, you know, what's leading to that? Well, we talk about supply and demand. Of course, that's something. But the thing we're hearing about the most is concerns over tariffs, you know? You know, the irony is, so, and as you know, I've got some ties to the political side of that arena. And I can say that even if the tariffs didn't happen, the same effect happened from the threat of the tariffs. Because what happens if you're in the building industry and you're being told that, hey, I'm going to build a home and it's going to take about 4 months of permitting and ARB approvals, and then I'm going to start building that home. And that home is going to take me somewhere around 6 months. Maybe my framing is taking a certain amount of time. I know I could be buying these materials when potentially tariffs are taken off. So what do you think we're doing as builders? Are we going to just say, hey, what do you think the suppliers who are trying to commit to? We're all having to kind of proactively make sure we're protecting ourselves price-wise.
It's funny you say that, because the threat of the tariff, like you said, a lot of times just that inclination, it can affect a lot of things down the road. Well,
it's kind of like the futures market when you get to the stock market. You know, when we hear the threat of the oil is going to get restricted, well, the oil here is the same price, but we're already adjusting.
It's kind of like we said with the interest rates, inflation and tariffs, those things have fluctuated over time.
That's right.
So we're not in a terribly unprecedented, it's not unprecedented.
Yeah, for sure. I do feel like, for those of you who are worried about that, I do believe that by the time we get to the late summer months, if I think for right now it is the thing, but I think as we get through the summer, I think that's going to die down. This is my personal,
I think it'll dissipate.
Theory as we get through this initial period. But anyway, real talk. Artificial intelligence innovation. Now, this is things to watch, issues to watch. And this is saying AI's role in real estate is rapidly evolving. Well, I think this is something we have to talk about. You know, so here's the thing, Frank. You know, we have a brokerage here, right? And so there is a human element of that. I'm going to find you a property. I'm going to make sure it looks good. Could AI replace that? No. Well, we know it cannot effectively replace it, but you can also be assured somebody's trying to do it right now. They're trying to invent that right now, you know?
I remember talking to a mortgage person that we had met a while back, and they said that for base level loans where there's not a whole lot of fluctuation in income or any red flags, a lot of that's going to be handled by AI.
Oh, man. Well,
because there's a certain matrix of a checklist they're going to go through, and it's not here or there, then it's going to qualify.
You know, here's the thing I would say, and I totally agree. And look, I'm a fan of AI. I think it has its place for sure. There's no doubt. And in fact, we use a lot of AI technology in our business. So it's, I think that the caution I would have to the buyer out there is if you start getting to a point where you think, well, I'm going to do an AI, and the AI says this home is a great value. It's like, AI has a limitation. It's not a true artificial intelligence where there's some all-knowing being that's coming up with this. There are intangibles that you just can't see until you see them. It can read every property report. It can read every single thing maybe at some point. But it cannot know the intangibles of the odor of a home or whatever it happens to be. There's just certain things it can't make up.
That's a great point. I have a rule that with my buyer clients, I will not allow them, I will not go under contract on a home that they have not physically walked.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because like you said, you could walk in and there's just a certain way the light catches it or the lack of natural light, or anything that you really can't see in a picture.
Man.
You just can't. You can't see it in the video.
You can't see it. And sometimes, I'll tell you, maybe I'm going to sound like I'm getting all waxing poetic about this, but the truth of the matter is, the way that you feel when you see something is unlike anything that AI could ever describe, and I believe that. Yeah. You know, our marketing director, Lauren, you know, she might be a country music fan, and she might listen to a song that speaks to her in a way that it won't speak to me. Yeah. There is no AI that can say, here's why you'll find it pleasing, Rob. It is a head bobbing, you know, it's like, no, you have to experience it. So I do believe that as people are looking at that, I would caution you, you're still going to need a realtor. There's no question. Yeah. And that realtor might use some AI to help you out, but that's that.
I'm accessing AI through things like if I'm doing a listing, just to get another take on how my verbiage, that kind of thing. Because sometimes it'll throw some terminology. You know, I used to get out, I would actually write it out, then use a thesaurus to try to change some words. And I mean, I did it old school. I would try to flower it up. Now you kind of plug it into AI and it feeds it back to you.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's like, that's a little too much.
Yeah, but you can only use the word cozy and elegant and charming so much. Yeah. You know, after a while, it's like, man, listen, every property can't be
the negative, like I told you the other day on the phone, I was driving down the road, I was looking at a listing on Facebook somebody had posted, and then I went, once you go on the listings, you click to the next one, and every third one was, welcome to the home of your dreams. The other one was, unlock the potential of your new home. You felt like you were looking at the same ad. And they were all different brokerages, all different agents, all different areas.
Oh, I mean, it
was the same opening line. I was like, wow.
We got to, and I think that's the cautionary tale, not about real estate. That's about America. That's about the world, man. We don't want to lose creativity while we're just trying to automate everything. So no, that's a great point. Here's another one, and we got 3 left, and we're going to go kind of quick with it. Sustainability, and the example here that they're trying to use is the sustainability of the house. And I'm going to use this in a way that we can apply to every day. Somebody's going out, they're looking at a home. It's a 2018 build, okay? You and I are looking at that going, that home's probably got some time left. How about the home that was built in 2010? Well, you know, if it hasn't had a new shingles and a new HVAC, that's coming down the pipeline. What's the sustainability of that? If it's built in 2003, maybe the hurricane strength of it is not as high. The energy efficiency isn't as high. So I do think this is something we have to look at,
Energy efficiency is the thing I noticed first. And the newer homes are tighter.
Yeah.
It's a way tighter home.
Well, listen, there are parts of the country where we've always heard this. If you're in real estate, if you're a realtor out there listening, we always heard about this thing when you're qualifying to buy a home. They call it pity, but you know, some of the big parts of it is it's not just the principal, it's the interest and it's the taxes and all this stuff. And insurance rate obviously is going to be a role. But what about electric cost? I'm looking at 2 homes, okay? This home has spray foam insulation, ICF walls, energy efficient, Energy Star appliances. This home has none of that. This one's electric bill is $100 a month. This one is $600 a month. Does that affect the affordability? Absolutely, it does. And so there are parts of the country where they're actually looking at this and saying, now, can you afford this home? Well, let's look at the energy cost. So you bet it's definitely a thing for sure.
Definitely there.
Office space conversions. So this is something, I think the concept here is people are working from home more often. People don't need the old dining room as often. So can you convert that over?
Anyone I've sold a home to recently under retirement age pretty much needed a home office.
Yeah. That's a great point. And the last one was price gap expectations. And what it's talking about, price gap expectations are, we're looking at both the difference and variations of the pricing based on what we thought it would be. So to your point, we had people who would come here back in the early 2000s and they'd say, oh, I've heard that you can get a home down here for $250 that's a mansion. A little bit of extreme, a little hyperbole there, but quite frankly, if you're coming from up north, $250 went a long way then.
Yeah.
Now you come here 20 years later, and that $250 doesn't buy you a whole lot. Maybe a nice, beautiful condo.
Like I said, from a 7-8 year period, I saw a difference of almost $200,000.
Absolutely. So when we talk about price gap expectations, I think there's always a process that we have to work through, which is helping people understand what the market actually is compared to what you thought it was going to be. And it's a tough pill to swallow. I'm
in the process now of 2 different people I'm showing homes to. They're right now we're virtually doing it. They're on their way in, and they're not finding anything they like. And I basically have to have that conversation is that you're about 50 to 75,000 below where you actually want to be.
Oh, sure. It's that exploratory process.
Yeah. Because they were here 4 years ago, 5 years ago, saw what they liked, it was this. And in their mind, and like we just said, you see your cousin, your nephew, all of a sudden he's this grown mustache, Well, same thing. Your house doesn't stay cheap.
I have a concept, and this is, again, just a tip I have for the buyer. If you're not looking at flipping that home in the next 2 years, settle down a little bit on the value. And here's why I say this. If you're a football fan, and Frank, I love doing football analogies, there was years ago, if a quarterback made $15 million a year, that's a big deal.
Crazy money.
Crazy deal. So had you signed a quarterback at that
franchise
time,
player.
a franchise quarterback, if you had signed him to a 10-year contract at $15 million a year, people are going, wow, that's a lot of money, right?
150.
But as the salary cap goes up, now $40 million, $45 million a year is the mark.
A year.
That $15 million was a heck of a deal. Yeah. So that price expectation, what you have to do is you have to realize while you're sitting there waiting for the quarterback I want the quarterback who's going to go when it goes down to $10 million. The truth is, buy now. Because if you had gotten that quarterback for $15 million a year, you would be ahead of everybody. Same thing with your home.
Just had this conversation with somebody. They're like, why would somebody buy a home now if they're not going to move here for several years? I said, well, if they can afford to do it,
absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah, 100%.
I wish I could have bought the home 7-8 years ago.
Man,
would have saved $200,000. Same house.
Same house. It's like every other investment in life.
Same house.
But these ones are almost guaranteed to go up like most of that stuff. You remember, you're a baseball guy. You remember a little baseball. Remember when Canseco got a $4 million contract back and he had come off as MVP? Everybody thought, well, this is crazy, $4 million. Can you imagine? Baseball players who are like carrying the bats are making $4 million.
The bench guy.
The bench guy. The guy who isn't even going to make it to the majors. Anyway. All right. Well, hey, listen, good show. 10 topics to watch in real estate. Frank, as always, good information, my friend. And hey, we hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and share us on your social media of choice.
And if you have any questions, send them to us.
Send them to us. We're on Instagram, Facebook. We're always entering and always interested in great topics. So we look forward to seeing you guys next time on the Modern Homes Podcast with Frank and Rob.